Have you been putting off your estate planning? Maybe you don't know where to start. You think it'll be complicated, expensive. Well, check out our sponsor, Trust and Will. Trust and Will makes it simple and fast to create your trust or will online to ensure your family and loved ones avoid lengthy, expensive legal proceedings or the state deciding what happens to your assets. And Trust and Will can handle everything: care wishes, nomination guardians, final arrangements, power of attorney, with a simple step-by-step process that guides you from start to finish. My audience gets 10% off at trustandwill.com/Pakman. The link is in the description.
The administration is in a panic. How do we know that? Because they're shutting off all of the economic data. The jobs report is gone. The inflation report is gone. The advanced GDP preview, they canceled that one. And in the meantime, as we enter a data blackout, Trump is still trying to get the Federal Reserve to slash rates the way we would only even think about doing if the economy was struggling. Now, meanwhile, because everything's getting dumber, Trump's transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, now put chin-up bars at airports, and he wants more of them, as air traffic control is sadly outdated and planes are sitting delayed. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, showed up and made biological comparisons so deranged that it strains credulity. Meanwhile, we have a MAGA Civil War update. After Marjorie Taylor Greene went after Trump on 60 Minutes Sunday night, Trump did respond, and he did flip out. And we are going to look at the Truth Social post so unhinged, it should really come with a warning label. And finally, in a sickly yellow public appearance, Trump was so confused by basic questions that he seems to not even understand his own bailout of farmers, not the first term bailout. That one was bad enough, but the new forthcoming $11 billion bailout of farmers. He doesn't know what's going on. I will also be joined by Senator Mark Kelly, who is being targeted by Trump and Republicans and getting death threats after he said, hey, if you're in the armed services, you might want to make sure you're not following any illegal orders. So we'll talk to Senator Mark Kelly. We've got a great bonus show. A lot happening today. All right, Donald Trump is in a full panic. The reason we know he's panicking is because he is canceling all of the economic data that he can cancel. This is the stuff that would tell us what is actually going on in the country. So the October jobs report canceled. The October inflation report canceled. The advanced estimate of third quarter GDP. This is like the first reading of whether the economy is growing or shrinking. They canceled that. Federal statistical agencies say that it's the government shutdown that meant economists couldn't collect the data. And as a result, a bunch of reports no longer exist. Now, this is the critically important part to understand. If the economy were booming the way that Donald Trump claims, he would be rushing these numbers out. If Donald Trump suspected or knew or was being told that the GDP preview or that the inflation number or the jobs numbers were good, he would be trotting them out there immediately in order to be able to say, look at what a great job I'm doing. The fact that all of those reports are canceled suggests they know the reports wouldn't be good. Now, there's another aspect to this. What Trump does want is the Federal Reserve to massively cut interest rates. The Federal Reserve only massively cuts interest rates when the economy is not going so well. When the economy is doing really well, you don't expect, demand, or request these huge cuts to the federal funds rate. When growth is weak, when unemployment may be going up, when the jobs numbers are in the toilet, when confidence is slipping, that's when you say, cut the federal funds rate and bail me out. So Donald Trump is on the one hand saying the economy is great, but on the other hand, making requests that you only make when the economy is on life support, like cut the federal funds rate 3-4 points, as Donald Trump has asked for many times. You could just let the numbers speak if the numbers were good. Instead, they are canceling all the numbers. Now, what we have is something called a data blackout. policymakers and investors and businesses, people who would use that economic data to make decisions, are flying blind, and they're forced to rely on private estimates like the jobs numbers from ADP as an example, because these normal government benchmarks that we for a long time have just expected to get every single month or quarterly, depending on the report, they are gone. And so when the jobs report disappears, workers don't know, what is the state of my industry? Should I be interviewing for another job? Do I need to change careers? What's going on? They don't know. Businesses don't know. Should we be hiring or should we be putting in place a hiring freeze? When the inflation data disappears, retirees and families aren't able to plan for what is going to happen with costs. And then if you get rid of GDP data, and we're going to get the formal GDP reading eventually, but it's that advanced one that was canceled, probably because it didn't look so good. You put investors and the Fed in a situation where they don't know, is the economy growing or is it shrinking? And that increases the risk that the economic decisions that are made are going to be problematic for everybody because they are being made blind. Now, here's the really dangerous part, as if everything I just told you isn't dangerous already. While we don't have official numbers, it makes it at least possible for this administration to make up whatever numbers they want. And there's nothing we can point to say he's lying. I'll give you an example. When Trump says, oh, prices are down, we normally look at the inflation data. If inflation is 3%, prices aren't down, they're up 3%. If inflation is 2%, prices aren't down, they're up 2%. If the government doesn't publish inflation data, Trump can go, inflation's down. And while, of course, we have other non-official indicators we can point to, it puts Trump in a position, very authoritarian, very dictatorial, of being able to say, forget the statistics, forget the reporting, forget the people who specialize in this stuff. Just listen to me. I'll tell you, unemployment's 2%, he could say, or inflation is -1%, or the GDP is booming. The blackout is not this passive thing. It gives the White House and it gives authoritarians the power to replace facts with propaganda. And this is partially how you break a democracy. You don't have to change the numbers. Just get rid of them. Just delete them. And markets don't just hate bad news. Markets hate uncertainty. And if you talk to CEOs or investors or small businesses, they can handle a downturn that they can measure, that they know is happening. Flying blind is not something that they can handle. And so when these reports vanish, corporations go into protection mode, and that is rarely bad for the economy. The bigger picture that I want to zoom out to is that if you look around the world over the last 120, 130 years, this is what authoritarians do when the data of reality start to contradict the story that they want to tell. Governments that fear bad news don't just ignore it, they suppress it. And they manipulate unemployment numbers, they hide inflation, they delay reports. And it might make the regime look weak to be doing that, but terrible economic reports will make the regime look even worse. And so they go, let's just hide the reports. And you put out propaganda instead of data. Trump already censors agencies when the facts are inconvenient. And now he's trying to do it with the entire economy. Now, the danger of this becoming normalized, if we accept presidents can just turn off the scoreboard when their team is losing, future presidents will do the same or maybe even worse. I don't care whether it's a Democratic or a Republican president in the future. I don't want the data turned off. Give me the data, let me evaluate it myself and make the business decisions that are appropriate for that data. And so we are taking many steps towards the economic information control we see in authoritarian states happening here in the United States. And the most telling sign is Trump would only do this if he knows the numbers won't be good. If the numbers bolster your case that you're killing it, if the numbers bolster your ability to say this is the best economy of all time, you would put those numbers out there as quickly as you could. So Trump is canceling it all because he's afraid of what the numbers will say. It's a total panic, but it is looking more and more like what we expect and have become accustomed to from overtly dictatorial, autocratic, authoritarian regimes. Hey, you want to see a terrible use of your tax dollars and my tax dollars? Look no further than Reagan Airport. What on earth is going on here? if you are watching rather than just listening today, you see on your screen Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You see a guy named Paul Saladino, who, despite being, I believe, a psychiatrist by training, is out there saying seed oils are terrible for you and you should just eat meat. And Trump's Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, they are at a chin-up bar, which they have placed in DCA Airport. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is, I guess, showing how to make America healthy again and the sort of thing that they want to see going on at the nation's airports by trying and failing to do a bunch of chin-ups. Take a look at this pathetic display.
Yes, sir. Lightweight.
Now, by the way, I should mention, this is like not the point of this. I don't think a single one of these reps counts as a chin-up. I don't see RFK's getting basically to his nose. I don't think he's doing a single real chin-up here, the continued gaslighting of the American people. But anyway, it's a forehead up. He's really getting his forehead up there. This is all part of the continued, I would argue, gaslighting of the American people. And there's two levels on which the gaslighting is taking place. And there, Paul Saladino gives RFK a pat on the back, and Sean Duffy is loosening his tie. He's going to do some of these, and we'll see maybe in a moment whether Sean Duffy gets even a single rep that qualifies. There's two themes here. Number one, when the problems are structural and they refuse to deal with them, they make it about individual behavior. The airports are a mess. Air traffic control is a mess. Planes are delayed and grounded. Well, maybe you can get 10,000 steps in at the airport. Maybe we put a chin-up bar in there and make the focus individual health or whatever. That's number one. And then, of course, number two, it's that there are real problems in our airports that need to be solved. And the people that presumably should be solving them are doing chin-ups at the airport. Now, just out of curiosity, I do want to see, does Sean Duffy do any of these chin-ups? Oh, here we go. Let's see if he gets any reps that count. Just out of curiosity. Let's take a look. Okay, those count. It's a chin-up in the sense that the chin actually did go over the bar. Listen, we are in an environment where we look around the world and we see everybody is laughing at us. And Donald Trump is the guy that thinks they are laughing with us. This is metaphorically, but it's also literal. And you look at what's happening with our airports. You look at airports in other countries and American airports. You look at the state and quality, even of just our planes. I was on a plane the other day. I don't know how many years old it was, but it was completely trashed, filthy. Nothing's function. I mean, it's just terrible. Bathroom problems. The chargers don't work. They've got no food. The tray table fell off into my lap. And meanwhile, it's about chin-ups. So what's the big idea? Here's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy telling us what is he planning to do to improve the airport experience for travelers. Take a listen.
Pretty wide open on what airports want to ask for a grant. But it might be, I want to expand the play areas for kids. I want additional nursing pods for nursing mothers. Maybe I want a workout area where people might get some blood flow and doing some pull-ups or some step-ups in the airport. But it could be any range of things. Maybe you want to work, I know this is TSA, but we're going to help on this as well. Maybe you want to have a different lane for families to get through TSA.
Okay, that I agree with. All over the world, you land. When I triumphantly made my courageous return to the United Kingdom recently, Heathrow can get crazy when all of the international flights show up. I show up there with my daughter, and my girlfriend was pregnant at the time, and I'm looking at this line and going, dear God. And then a very nice gentleman, I assume he was a gentleman. He seemed very gentle to me. He says, oh, we have a fast lane for families. And I go right through. We should really have that. That I agree with. But, you know, chin-up bars and whatever. We have flights delayed, airports trashed, air traffic control exhausted, ground stops. But go and do some chin-ups. I mean, come on, guys. This is, it's another example, sort of like the plastic straws. I don't know if you remember when there was a big move to say, let's get rid of the plastic straws. Do your part. Drink through a pasta noodle or, a piece of paper instead of a plastic straw. Do your part. When the vast majority of the carbon footprint pollution and trash and waste is being generated by industry. And it's just one of these ways to sort of put the focus on the individual. It's all just whacked out. One more clip. Here is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about how infant formula. No, everybody should be breastfeeding.
All of the ingenuity of corporate America, all the resources, all the resourcefulness has not produced an infant formula that is superior in nutrition and all the qualities that we want to the infant formula that God made, which is the infant formula in a mother's breast.
There you go. God-made breast milk. And as many of you know, there are many many women who, for one reason or another, cannot breastfeed. And sometimes it is medical, sometimes it is situational. A lot of you remember after our first daughter was born that my partner had a medical emergency 2 weeks postpartum, ended up having surgery. As a result, lost the ability to breastfeed just by virtue of being in the hospital for a week. And God made breast milk, and give me a break. This is just going to make people feel bad. And this is where the focus is. We've got structural problems that need to be fixed. And we've got Sean Duffy talking about chin-ups. And we've got RFK Jr. talking about God's milk. Really whacked out stuff. And this is partially why the world is laughing at us, but also crying because it's so embarrassing and terrible. I predicted yesterday that after Marjorie Taylor Greene went on 60 Minutes and said that behind his back, Republicans are laughing at Donald Trump, I predicted Donald Trump would absolutely lose his mind and be wildly triggered. And he did. I'll remind you what Marjorie Taylor Greene said on 60 Minutes, and then we did get Donald Trump's reaction to it.
Behind the scenes, do they talk differently?
Yes.
How?
Oh, it would shock people.
Well, let's shock people.
Okay. I watched many of my colleagues go from making fun of him, making fun of how he talks, making fun of me constantly for supporting him, to when he won the primary in 2024, they all started, excuse my language, Leslie, kissing his ass and decided to put on a MAGA hat for the first time.
So I predicted that this would be a wild trigger to Donald Trump, and it won. It was. In comes Donald Trump with a wall of text on Truth Social, where he says, quote, "The only reason Marjorie Trader Brown went bad is that she was jilted by the President of the United States. Certainly not the first time she has been jilted. Too much work, not enough time, and her ideas are now really bad. She sort of reminds me of a rotten apple. Marjorie is not America First or MAGA, because nobody could have changed her views so fast, and her new views are those of a very dumb person. That was proven last night when washed-up Trump-hating 60 Minutes correspondent Leslie Stahl, who still owes me an apology from when she attacked me on the show, with serious conviction, that Hunter Biden's laptop from hell was produced by Russia, not Hunter himself, totally proven wrong, interviewed a very poorly prepared traitor, who in her confusion made many really stupid statements. My real problem with the show, however, wasn't the low IQ traitor. It was that the new ownership of 60 Minutes Paramount would allow a show like this to air. They are no better than the old ownership, who just paid me millions of dollars for fake reporting about your favorite president, me. Since they bought it, 60 Minutes has actually gotten worse. Oh well, far worse things can happen. P.S. I hereby demand a complete and total apology, though far too late to be meaningful, from Leslie Stahl in 60 Minutes for her incorrect and libelous statements about Hunter's laptop. You know, Trump demanding an apology from CBS for that is pretty rich. But there's a couple different stories here. Number one, yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene predictably triggered Donald Trump. One of Donald Trump's greatest insecurities is that people don't like him. And this is common, in fact, for a lot of authoritarians. And Trump is desperate to be liked. Marjorie not only doesn't like him anymore, I guess, but is pointing out that a lot of Republicans laugh at him behind his back. And that is one of the greatest Achilles heels or Achilles tendons of people like Donald Trump. That's number one. Number two, the MAGA civil war is undeniably present and growing, but the question is whether Republicans are finally going to drop Trump like a bad habit in advance of the 2026 midterms or not. It's not, if you're hoping that it'll be an ethical calculation from Republicans, it won't be. Republicans are going to look, as we approach 2026, now only 11 months, not even 10 plus months away. Can you believe that? And they are going to say, is aligning with Trump or distancing from Trump better for me in terms of getting elected or reelected in 2026? That's what it will come to. But maybe for the first time in a very long time in American politics, denouncing Trump may actually be better for them. And that's all that it's going to hinge on. And so you've got the MAGA civil war situation. And then number three, as usual, Donald Trump with his thinly veiled threats against media, a totally Trump-friendly parent conglomerate now owns 60 Minutes. And Trump still says, they got to be careful. You know, worse things can happen. They'd better apologize. And that is theme number three. And we're going to see this later as Donald Trump calls a reporter obnoxious. Go after the media when they say anything you don't like, even if it's simply in an interview format where a guest says something you don't like. Terrifying, dystopian authoritarianism. Having the right estate planning done, a will, maybe a trust, is super important. I recently took care of it myself. It's not the most fun thing to do, but it is very important. And our sponsor, Trust and Will, makes it really easy. And you can get 10% off at trustandwill.com/Pakman. It's a straightforward process. They walk you through it. All of the documents are state specific. They are legally valid. They are customized to your needs, your care wishes or nomination, guardians, final arrangements, power of attorney. You're just making sure your family and loved ones avoid a lengthy and expensive proceeding, or that the state ends up deciding what happens to your assets. Trust and Will's simple step-by-step processes guide you from start to finish, one question at a time. Save your loved ones time and stress by having your documents in one place with bank-level encryption, with live customer support available through phone, chat, and email. Trust and Will is trusted by hundreds of thousands of families and counting. Protect what matters most in just minutes at trustandwill.com/Pakman and get 10% off. The link is in the description. We all know food is central to the holidays, so having good olive oil is crucial. Our sponsor, Graza Olive Oil, has been my go-to for years, which is why I reached out to them about becoming a sponsor. It's always fresh, never blended. The olives are always picked, pressed, and bottled in the same season from the same source in Jaén, Spain. You can even see the harvest date on the bottle. Graza makes 3 high-quality oils for everything you're cooking this time of year. Sizzle for everyday cooking, roasting, and sautéing. Drizzle as a bright, punchy finishing oil for salads, bread, pasta, anything that needs a lift. And Frizzle is their high heat oil for baking, grilling, and frying. Graza oils taste clean, vibrant, super fresh. I love the bottles. They look great in my kitchen. And Graza's gift sets make an easy and perfect holiday gift. People actually use this, and the packaging is really nice. Go to graza.co/DavidP and use code DavidP to get 10% off. The link is in the description. This is an audience-funded program, and I would be flattered to get your support. The primary and most direct ways to support this show are simply to get a membership on my website, joinpakman.com. All but 2.9% of every dollar comes to us. No 10%, 20, 30, 40% platform fees. We do an extra program every single day for our members. We also offer commercial-free audio and video streams of the show, and you can find all of it at joinpakman.com. A sickly, yellow-looking Trump was totally dazed and confused and lashed out at a reporter. Trump going from looking like a traffic cone to looking like a jaundiced baby, and he seems unable to parse any of what he is being asked. Just as like a funny place to start, a Lindell TV, quote, reporter was in the room. Here is the very tough and serious question that she had for Donald Trump.
Feel entertained. I'm Kara from Lindell TV, Kara Kashnov, and I'm not fake news, just so you know. And everybody's talking about the pipe bomber over the weekend, the suspect that was taken into custody. I reported on Biden's kangaroo court for 4 years, and this is an important question to me. Everyone knows that J6 was a Fed's direction to set you and your supporters up. So my question is, what's your gut instinct about the new pipe bomber suspect taken into custody?
Notice that Trump nods when the reporter suggests that the January 6th riots were set up by the Fed. That's what she means by a Fedsurrection. Trump was in charge of the Fed at that point in time, in the sense that Trump had his FBI director in there. It's all just crazy conspiracy, but Trump nods.
Does your instinct tell you that he acted alone? And also, Mr. President, how do you feel about the lead prosecutor on the pipe bomber case? Jocelyn Ballantine is the same prosecutor that allegedly asked the J6er to lie to frame you for J6 when you did nothing wrong. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that question. It's sort of a statement, and I appreciate it very much. Jocelyn is being looked at. They all have to be looked at. What they're doing is so bad. This was a whole Democrat hoax. The whole thing was a Democrat.
And Trump really appreciates statements from reporters when they are favorable to him, of course. Trump being asked, should we grow all of our own produce in the United States, even if it costs a little bit more? Trump knows nothing about this topic and answers in a way that reminds us he knows nothing and talks about little delicacies.
Produce. You spoke about soybeans and how the quality here in the United States obviously is a lot better.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, is the default of this administration, because that's an issue I understand with root vegetables, citrus as well, is the default of this administration that even if it's a little bit more expensive homegrown, you will choose homegrown over cheaper produce abroad?
I like homegrown. You know, some things we can't grow because we don't have the heat. There are some things, you know, little delicacies, or maybe not such delicacies, but they grow better in warmer climates, very warm climates, actually.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I like homegrown.
There you go. What on earth is he talking about? There's little delicacies. Now, Trump knows very little about this. This is an issue of major significance. There are many things that the U.S. can grow no problem. You know, lettuce, apple, potatoes, onions, berries. There are some things you need tropical heat for. He's right about that. Other than, you know, in some cases, other than Hawaii, there is little opportunity for that in the United States. But there is a question of, why do we import produce anyway, even if you could grow it in the United States, and labor is cheaper abroad? So there are lots of imported fruits and vegetables that cost much less. American farms have high labor costs. Now, you could take the position, let's pay the higher labor costs. Let's employ people at something closer to a fair wage rather than what is paid abroad. We'll pay more, certainly, but it's worth it. And if that is what the administration is saying, then they should be able to articulate it. Trump doesn't really know. He doesn't really understand anything. The other aspect of this is that homegrown produce is not always more expensive. There are sometimes local can be cheaper, depending on the specifics and how far it has to travel to get to where people are actually buying it. But as a general principle, domestic produce for all products that can be grown here would cost significantly more. Now, Donald Trump got very bored at this meeting, and he wanted it all sped up. After Scott Bessent read in the most just boring way that only Scott Bessent can do a statement, Trump goes, we got to go faster here. Trump's getting bored. Grandpa needs a nap.
And it extended and enhanced much needed relief for the punishing death tax, giving family farms greater certainty as they plan for the next generation. Mr. President, thank you for putting America first by putting your farmers first.
Trump barely awake.
Pro-growth, pro-farm agenda, you are ushering in a new golden age of American agriculture, and Treasury is proud to help in this.
Thank you, Scott. You know what we'll do? We're going to go a little faster because the last meeting we had was 3 hours. We're the most transparent group, so if we can go faster, it'll be great. And then we'll take some questions from.
Please go faster. Trump is getting bored. He needs to go and take a nap. Now, then it got really dicey with a reporter. You may recall that just days ago, Trump said, we are going to release any video we have of this now infamous strike on an alleged narco trafficking boat from Venezuela, of the double tap strike. That's what Trump said about 6 days ago. Trump is asked, are you going to release the full video? And Trump attacks the reporter.
I'm totally fine with
Are you
that.
committed to releasing the full video?
Didn't I just tell you that?
You said that it was
You're
up
the
to
most
Secretary Hicks.
obnoxious reporter in the whole place. Let me just tell you, you are an obnoxious, a terrible reporter, and it's always the same thing with you. I told you, whatever Pete Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
The problem is, first of all, that Trump's instinct is always to attack the press. Always, always, always. But flash back to December 3rd, just 6 days ago, and Trump said, whatever we have, whatever video we have, we will release.
I've never heard of it. Very good. We never heard of it. That's pretty good.
Mr. President, you released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release. No problem.
There you go. Well, that has changed very much. Suddenly, he's not saying whatever we have, we'll release. He's attacking the reporter. I wonder why all of a sudden, and rampant allegations of a cover-up, we'll delve into that more, really deserves its own evaluation. And then finally, Donald Trump saying prices are down. Listen carefully to what he says, and then I have a question for you about this.
Well, I think the prices are going to be going down already. I mean, the prices are way down. We brought prices way down from what it was. We inherited high prices. We inherited the biggest inflation in the history of our country. That means prices going up. And we brought it down very substantially. Now inflation is essentially gone.
So Trump says they have brought prices down. And as I'm sure you know by now, because I've said it so many times on the show, if inflation is more than zero, prices are going up. Here's my question to you. Do you think Trump doesn't realize that prices have continued to go up? Or do you think he knows it and he's lying because he assumes his followers don't know that? Because the only way for prices to come down would be deflation. I would need to come to you and say, ladies and gentlemen of my audience, ladies and gentlemen, inflation is minus 2%. And then we would say, okay, prices are going down. Probably wages would also be going down and employment would be suffering, but that's a different story. Does Trump realize he's lying? And he's doing it because he thinks his followers are too dumb to know the difference? Or is Trump the one who's confused about inflation? Let me know what you think. The farmers are now getting crushed, and the administration has a plan to bail them out. And as usual, Donald Trump wants to be praised. He wants the farmers on their knees because Trump is trying to partially put out a fire that he set in the first place by destroying markets for our farmers and ranchers with the tariffs. Trump announcing, we've got a bailout plan. And as usual, you can tell he doesn't really even understand it. Socialism for farmers is here.
I'm delighted to announce this afternoon that the United States will be taking a small portion of the hundreds of billions of dollars we receive in tariffs. We are making a lot of money from countries that took advantage of us for years. They took advantage of us like
Remember that it's American companies that pay the tariffs. It's American money, not Chinese money, that will be used for this bailout.
Nobody's ever seen our deficits are way down because of tariffs. I guess because of the election, because without the election, you wouldn't have tariffs. You'd be sitting here losing your shirt. But we're taking in billions. We're really taking in trillions of dollars, if you think about it, Scott, because the real numbers, when you think of all the money being poured into the country for
none of this, this couldn't be further from the truth.
For new auto plants and all of the other things, AI. So what we're doing is we're taking a relatively small portion of that, and we're going to be giving and providing it to the farmers in economic assistance. And we love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me because based on voting trends, you could call it voting trends or anything else, but they're great people. They're the backbone of our country. So we're going to use that money to provide $12 billion in economic assistance to American farmers. $12 billion is a lot of money, Merrill. What do you think? Peanuts for you, though, right? Peanuts.
So you might get the sense that Trump has some idea what the plan is. He doesn't. That becomes clear as we go forward during this. Trump brought in an ass-kissing farmer to sit next to him to just talk about how awesome Trump is and how great Trump is. And this is really pathetic, especially because we know that farmers have really soured on Trump.
Story at night, putting him to bed, and he said, "Daddy, I don't want Santa Claus to come to our house for Christmas. I want President Trump."
I would really be concerned about what sort of parenting is going on if that's what the kid wants.
And I think, Mr. Trump, I think you brought Christmas to farmers. With this bridge payment, we'll be able to farm another year, help us get by. It's such an honor to be here with you.
Yeah. Brought in as the ass-kissing farmer. The truth, of course, and we've played dozens of the clips, is that farmers are disgusted with what Trump has done. And then, as I mentioned, Donald Trump confused about his own plan. Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, explains the plan. Trump gets into a little disagreement with her about how much money is it? Is it $11 billion or is it $12 billion?
So, as the president said, we are very pleased to announce that today we are going to be effectuating an $11 billion bridge payment to our farmers. The money will move by February 28th of 2026, but by the end of this month, so just in the next couple of weeks, every farmer that is able to apply for it will know exactly what that number looks like. So as you are going to your lender, as you are working to ensure and understanding what you can plant for next year, you will have that number in hand. And we will continue to talk to our farmers, continue to understand exactly what this looks like and what is necessary. The final thing I'll say is,
$12 billion.
Well, we're holding $1 billion back. So today we are announcing $11 billion. We are holding $1 billion back just to ensure that we are covering. So today's announcement.
There you go. So Trump confused about his own bailout, which, by the way, isn't this the socialism and communism and Marxism that Trump told us to fear? But he needs to be praised for this. If Biden were doing it, they would say off with his head. As usual, Trump seems to be the last one to know what they're doing. And then Trump's final brilliant idea has to do with taking all environmental restrictions off of equipment, farming equipment manufacturers.
We're going to also give the tractor companies, John Deere and all of the companies that make the equipment, we're going to take off a lot of the environmental restrictions that they have on machinery. It's ridiculous. I know because I buy a lot of that machinery for different things.
Right.
We have a lot of big clubs with, hundreds, thousands of acres. And I buy a lot of stuff, and you buy it, it's got so much equipment on it for the environmental, it doesn't do anything, except it makes the equipment much more expensive and much more complicated to work. And it's not as good as the old days. And we're going to take a lot of that nonsense off of the equipment, which is going to reduce, and we're going to do it, and we're going to say you're going to reduce the prices. We're not going to do it, and they're not going to reduce. They're going to have to reduce their prices.
There you go. And of course, Trump sort of catches himself. He kind of gives away the game. He goes, the reason that these products have become so expensive is because of all of the environmental requirements placed on John Deere and Kubota and all these companies that make equipment. So we're going to tell them they don't have to do that anymore. Take it all off. And by the way, we're also going to force them to reduce prices because Trump intuitively knows that's not actually why the equipment costs what it costs. The equipment costs what it costs because we have inflation in this country, and inflation continues. And we also have relatively modest regulations, safety regulations on this equipment, so that hopefully fewer people will end up getting hurt with these large pieces of machinery. So Trump's combination of confusion, anger that other people are speaking, and disdain that not everybody is down on their knees praying at the altar of Trump leads to not only really bad ideas, but it leads to continued suffering for the farmers and ranchers. If only there had been some way to prevent this in the first place. Donald Trump has already packed his second-term cabinet with loyalists. He's threatened deportation as political punishment. He's expanded executive authority in ways we have not seen in modern history. These are real changes that are happening right now. And what's even more alarming is that a lot of the media is either glossing over the worst of it or they're reframing it so it all sounds a little more palatable. And that is why I use Ground News. This is a news comparison tool. Doesn't just feed you headlines. It shows you here's how different outlets, left, right, center, are covering the same story. And this is one of the few tools I know of that can really help you detect the political spin, the bias, catch stories that your usual sources might downplay or not cover at all, on everything from immigration policy to economic shifts. If you want to get a bigger picture, a broader picture of what's being reported, Ground News is an invaluable source to keep you informed. And Ground News is offering my audience 40% off their top tier Vantage plan. You'll only pay $5 a month. Go to ground.news/Pakman or enter the code Pakman in the app to get started. The link is in the description. The truth is that most underwear wasn't designed with comfort in mind. Sheath underwear actually was, and the difference will immediately hit you as you put them on for the first time. Instead of letting everything mash together like traditional underwear, Sheath is designed with dual front pouches that separate and support you throughout the day. It's breathable, soft, built to keep you dry, no more sticking, no awkward adjustments, no discomfort. It sounds too good to be true. But once you try Sheath, you're going to understand it is difficult to go back. I've heard from so many people, they were skeptical and then they were sold after their first pair. I was one of those people. It is not just for men. Sheath has an excellent women's line too, all with the same focus on comfort and quality. Perfect for the holidays if you're looking for a gift. Go to sheathunderwear.com/Pakman and get 20% off with code Pakman. The link is in the description. It is great to have back on the program today Senator Mark Kelly representing Arizona. Senator, great to have you on. You know, there are so many places we could start. In the context of the last 2 to 3 weeks, the video you participated in with 5 of your colleagues reminding members of the armed forces, remember, if you receive illegal orders, it is your duty to say, we are not going to do that. The threats, the targeting from Donald Trump and the people around him, just on a personal level, are the threats at this point as intense as they've ever been? How are you dealing with that on a logistical level?
Well, yeah, when arguably the most powerful man in the world, who has a huge following, who has a lot of supporters out there, says that I should be hanged, executed for something I said, by the way, something that was true and lawful, and in not only the Uniform Code of Military Justice, but in our rules of armed conflict. When he says that I should be executed, it does result in more threats, not only to me but to my family as well.
Is it making you skittish about, like, we covered the town hall that you did, which was really interesting. Are you thinking about pulling back at all?
No, of course not. If I was to take a step back because of Donald Trump's intimidation and DOD and DOJ's intimidation of me, that diminishes everybody's First Amendment rights. I said something he didn't like. He wanted to shut me up, and he's going to use the full force of the U.S. government to try to do that. But I'm not going to back down from him or anybody else. I've served this country for decades. I fought in combat. I flew into space on the space shuttle 4 times, working at NASA. I've given a lot to this country, and so has my wife. She nearly lost her life serving her country, speaking with her constituents in a rather heightened political climate. And she got shot in the head and nearly died. Gabby and I are not ones to back down from this guy or anybody else.
I want to delve in a little bit to the discussion about legal versus illegal orders. On the one hand, why did you feel the need to remind troops about that responsibility? On the other hand, when some of your colleagues have been asked, have there been any illegal orders issued by Trump or people around him so far? There's been, at least as far as I've seen, a hesitation to say, yes, here's the 3 illegal orders that should have been refused. Although now the context of this double tap attack on this alleged narco trafficking boat is raising questions about that. But talk a little bit about the timing. Like, why was that a reminder you felt the troops needed?
Well, it's a number of things. So we know who Donald Trump is, and we have a record of what he has said in the past. If you go back to 2016, he was on a debate stage. This was before he was president, so he's running for president the first time. And he says that the U.S. military should be killing the family members of terrorists. Hey, nobody likes terrorists, right? And in certain circumstances, we kill terrorists. I get that. But women and children, candidate Donald Trump said we should kill women and children. Bret Baier of Fox News said, well, the military is not going to carry that out because that would be illegal. Donald Trump's response was, the military will not refuse my orders. Like somehow he's above the law and he has so much influence over members of the military that there is not a circumstance where they would refuse him, even if it was illegal. Then later, as president, he talked about shooting protesters, U.S. citizens who are protesting in the legs. Clearly, that would be illegal for the U.S. military to do that. It didn't happen. He's more recently talked about sending U.S. troops into more cities, and they could use those cities for training. Now, I mean, did that get as much attention as I thought it should have received? No. But what he is saying is he wants the United States military, the Army, the Marine Corps, to train on U.S. citizens. That's unprecedented. So you combine all that stuff and with what he has said recently, that we're just going to kill people. When asked about certain things, we're just going to kill people. No authorization of military force, no going to Congress, no, hey, it's in my authority to conduct kinetic strikes on legal targets. Donald Trump from the White House says, we're just going to kill people. And then he appoints the most unqualified Secretary of Defense that our country has ever seen. It's not debatable. This guy is unqualified for this job. And he brings all the admirals and generals and senior enlisted in, and he runs around on a stage talking about lethality and hunting and killing people, and disparages the rules of engagement like they're a joke. Those rules of engagement are not only to protect our moral authority as the United States of America, that we do not violate the law, it's also there to protect members of the military. So myself and others, I'm concerned for the guys in the military that are trying to do a hard job. I've done this job before. It can be challenging under the best of circumstances. And you put these two jokers in charge, and they could put members of the military in a really difficult position. So we thought it was the appropriate thing to do at the appropriate time. Like this was the right time to do it before something bad happens. Now, this has become a larger conversation because of Venezuela. And a second strike on survivors of a first strike, and whether or not that was a legal thing to do.
I was on CNN the other day, and one of my co-panelists was diving deep as to the legal definition of a shipwreck, sort of suggesting that that is what the legality hinges on. I'm not a lawyer, but my opinion is that defining exactly what we mean by shipwreck is not what the legality of that second strike actually depends on. Can you shed any light onto that?
Well, I haven't seen the video yet. I hope to. We need to have hearings. I think we should have hearings in the SCIF and also public hearings. I think people should be under oath. I think the video should be released.
Yeah.
I also think the legal justification for doing any of this should be released as well. I've read it. But there's no reason why the American public shouldn't be able to see it. They should be able to see the video. I mean, they've released all the other videos. What is so sensitive about this one? Well, I think we know why they don't want to release it. Because my understanding is it shows two guys on a boat that's been cut in half and flipped over. I mean, if that's not shipwrecked, I don't know what is. One of my Republican colleagues talked about, well, they were trying to flip it over. I've got a degree in marine engineering. I've taken naval architecture classes before. If they would have successfully flipped that boat over, it probably would have sunk. If that's not being shipwrecked, You know, I mean, what is? And then the Department of Defense decided that these two individuals, should be killed. That brings up a lot of questions. Like, what is the legality of doing that? This is the example that is used in the Manual of War.
Yes.
Is the shipwrecked example as something that is a illegal order. But I don't want to prejudge and say that was illegal. I mean, we're gonna see there should be an investigation. The inspectors general of the Department of Defense should look into this.
What is your sense of the significance of the growing double standards that exist on a lot of these things? And to give you a little bit of context, there was a time where, while I disagreed with many Republicans on policy, if you exposed a double standard, they would sort of at least take that seriously and engage with you on it. We have video of Pete Hegseth in 2016 saying essentially the same thing that you and your 5 colleagues say in the video about refusing illegal orders. It gets no coverage. None of their voters seem to care. Donald Trump certainly doesn't care. What happened that made consistency completely irrelevant at this point?
Well, I think Donald Trump happened. People don't want to cross him. I mean, if they might care about consistency, they might care about the rule of law. When I say they, my Republican colleagues.
Yeah.
But they do not want to cross this president. There are consequences for crossing this president. There are consequences for saying something that he does not agree with, that he doesn't like. I said something he didn't like, and he said I should be killed for it. So they understand that. They understand who he is. They understand the consequences to their careers or even their safety. They understand the threats. I mean, were there ever threats before during confirmation processes for people? That I can't think of one.
No.
When Pete Hegseth was being confirmed, there were threats against members of Congress.
Senator, last thing I want to ask you about, in your town hall that you recently did, you received some questions about sort of consequences and the idea of, okay, Democrats maybe take the House in 2026, but then what, right? In the sense of, yes, now controlling the purse strings does stop Trump's agenda dead in the water. There's the possibility of investigations and really, putting into the muck and mire for the last 2 years of this administration in a way that maybe will be uncomfortable for them. I don't know. But to a lot of people in my audience, that's not really feeling like consequences. What is possible, and what would you actually like to see in terms of consequences for everything that's happened?
Well, there needs to be oversight and accountability, and there hasn't been that for this administration. Maybe we'll see something here on these Venezuelan boat strikes. I've talked to some of the Republicans on the Armed Services Committee about this, and they've got a lot of questions as well, and they seem to understand that we need to provide the accountability and the oversight that we're supposed to provide as members of Congress. After 2026, then we'll have the ability to subpoena people and bring them up to Capitol Hill and question them under oath and get documents and release documents and provide some oversight to this administration, which I believe is just sorely needed. I mean, we have a guy in the White House that is ripping off the American people, including many of his supporters. I mean, who buys Trump meat and Trump wine and Trump guns and Trump sneakers and Trump watches? Those are the people that wear the red hats. I actually feel really bad for them. Even though they don't vote for me, I still represent a lot of these folks. And this president is ripping them off. And it gets worse with meme coins, where his family runs up the price of a meme coin, and then they sell all of their holdings, and hardworking people get wiped out. That has happened. People lose their retirement. Donald Trump supporters that wear the MAGA hat is getting ripped off by this president. And now he wants $230 million from the Treasury. Taxpayer money he wants to stuff in his giant pockets. and it's wrong. And if Democrats win back the House and or the Senate, we can do things to stop that from happening. It's corruption as we have never seen in this country before. And the president doesn't even care. I mean, Richard Nixon used to do this kind of stuff, some of this stuff like behind closed doors and quietly.
Yeah.
Donald Trump does it out in the open. So that's why this next election matters so much. And then we'll see what happens in 2028. I mean, we've got to replace this unethical behavior, and we've got to get somebody in the White House that has some sense of what this country is and cares about the Constitution. I don't think Donald Trump even understands what is in the Constitution. I imagine he's probably never even read the thing.
Despite a copy of it being up on the wall of his office at this point, which is a whole other story. Yeah, no, I feel bad for the people that have been conned as well. Senator, we are going to be following all of this, including the fallout from the strikes. We've been speaking with Senator Mark Kelly, who represents the state of Arizona. Always appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on.
Every time you Google your name, you will probably find dozens of sites that expose your personal information. This can include phone number, home address, family details. It's just sitting there waiting to be scraped or abused. Incogni is a privacy service. They go after these sites on your behalf. They contact the data brokers. They demand your data be removed, which the brokers are legally required to do. Incogni will automatically remove your information from hundreds of the biggest and most notorious data broker sites, but you're not just limited to those. You can use Incogni's custom removal. If you find your info on a website outside of Incogni's default list, the team at Incogni will work to get that information removed. This is how you protect yourself and your family from identity theft, financial scams, harassment, even AI-powered profiling by ad companies. And Incogni's data removal process is the only one verified independently by Deloitte. This gives them a unique level of credibility. Try Incogni risk-free and get 60% off when you go to incogni.com/Pakman and use the code Pakman. The link is in the description. A lot of people hit this point in December and realize I still need to find a thoughtful, genuine gift for someone on my list, and quickly. If that is you, Aura Frames can really help you out. Our sponsor, Aura, makes premium digital frames that beautifully display photos and videos. I've been using one myself for years. I've given Aura frames to my mom. I've given them to my dad, so many people. I preloaded them with baby photos, and they love it because they turn it on the first time, and the pictures are there. Aura makes it really easy, not only with the preloading of photos, but you can keep adding them throughout the year with the app. There is plenty of time to get an Aura frame shipped before Christmas, and you'll get $35 off their best-selling Carver mat frames when you go to auraframes.com and use the code Pakman at checkout. The link is in the description. Donald Trump's press secretary, Karoline Levitt, suffered a complete and total collapse in multiple live television interviews this morning. This includes Newsmax. This includes Fox News. Where we are, big picture with Karoline Levitt as the official mouthpiece for this administration, is that there is no way to tell the truth about what's going on and make the case that the economy is doing well and that the tariffs are making sense and that the jobs market is improving and that prices are going down. You can't tell the truth and make those claims because those claims aren't true. And so where is Karoline Levitt left? Notice, by the way, not wearing her infamous huge cross necklace during these TV appearances. Apparently she knew she would be telling a lot of lies and Jesus might not like that one. She opted not to go with the cross, at least not visibly during these interviews. The solution is to just lie. For example, here is Karoline Levitt telling provable lies about the track record of soybean exports to China in the United States with the theme
of blaming the former President Joe Biden. What a surprise.
Another huge win for our farmers following his successful meeting with President Xi in South Korea, where Trump convinced President Xi to continue purchasing or begin purchasing again American soybeans, which is something China wasn't doing under the last administration because they had no respect for our President Biden or.
Now, most of you, if you watch this show, if you listen to the podcast, you know that that's a lie. Soybean sales to China persisted during the Biden administration, and they persisted during the first few months of this Trump administration. And then Trump dumped the tariffs on China, and soybean exports to China went to zero. Chinese imports of soybeans remained level. They're just now getting them from other countries. And meanwhile, what Donald Trump has convinced President Xi to do is, after reducing exports of soybeans to zero with the tariffs, Trump has convinced China to start importing a little bit of soybean, way less than what they used to do. And much of it is a purchase order, as Scott Bessent likes to say, maybe for 2026, I guess. So she is just straight up lying. When the truth can't be spun in any way to make you look good, you just make it up. Newsmax host to Karoline Levitt says that Donald Trump's farm bailout is funded by tax dollars, rather not funded by tax dollars, but funded by tariffs. The idea, of course, is, well, the tariff money that we're giving to the farmers for the bailout, it's coming from other countries. Of course, we all know that that's not true.
Yeah, Caroline, on the topic of affordability, I know one of the things that upsets a lot of folks is the price of groceries. And yesterday, President Trump announced a $9 billion aid package to support our farmers, strengthen the agriculture industry. And that's not just helping our farmers. It will pass down to people at the grocery store. This is a big deal. And it's also not funded by tax dollars. It's funded by tariffs.
That's right. Yes. Yesterday, here at the White House, President Trump met with a group of great farmers from around the country and announced $12 billion in relief for them. Again, funded.
The host says it's $9 billion. Karoline says it's $12 billion. Trump thought it was $12 billion, but Brooke Rollins said it's $11 billion. What's a few billion between friends, right? But the point here is, I'm so sorry to have to remind you of this, Karoline. Tariffs are import taxes paid by the importer. If you are ABC company and you import steel, you pay the tariff, not the country or the company that is sending you the steel. They are just lying because they've got nothing left. Big focus over the last 48 hours, which tells us they know how bad it's getting, on blaming Biden in general for the economy. They both want you to believe everything's awesome, but we're working on it because we were handed such a terrible economy from Joe Biden. Here she is putting that message out on Newsmax this morning.
Gas prices are at their lowest point right now than they have been in 5 years, and we do expect them to continue to decline as long as President Trump is here to drill, baby, drill. So all of these actions are actions President Trump took to build the greatest economy in history in his first term. It is working. It takes time because, as you pointed out, Mark, President Biden left President Trump with an absolute economic mess.
Now, a couple things. We are going to do more evaluation of this Biden claim. She says casually that gas prices are as low as they have been in 5 years. A very deceptive claim. First of all, here's a 5-year chart of gas prices, and you see a six-month period during which they were lower. You see the spike in 2022. And then otherwise, there have been many periods of gas prices being about as low as they are right now. And not to mention that Trump promised to bring them down, and he hasn't. She then went from Newsmax to Fox News. And on Fox News, she tries the exact same claim. The economy was terrible because of Biden when we took over.
Caroline, this is the president at his best when he's on the road talking with the American people. What can we anticipate him telling the folks on the road?
Sure. Well, we greatly look forward to going to Northeast Pennsylvania tonight, and President Trump is going to give a positive, economic-focused speech where he talks about all that he and his team has done to provide bigger paychecks and lower prices for the American people. And don't forget, a year ago, President Trump inherited the worst inflation crisis in modern American history from the Biden administration.
Now, remember that inflation was between 2.5 and 3 when Trump took over, and it has bounced between 2.5 and 3 since Donald Trump took over. The truth of the Biden economy. I'll give you everything, right? I won't hold back the bad stuff. Job creation, very strong under Biden. Unemployment, really low under Biden. Solid GDP growth. Real incomes, meaning wages relative to inflation, went up. Household prosperity went up on average. More insured Americans. The number of people without health insurance declined while Biden was president. No recession as inflation came down. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, no economy is perfect. Even though inflation came down under Biden, it was still positive. Prices still went up, and that strained household budgets. That's a reality. Growth was uneven in the sense that it was up and down depending on the quarter, and not everybody benefited equally. There is inequality in our economy. High cost of living continued to plague many Americans. There were trade-offs with a lot of these different stimulus policies. All right, so, it was a mixed bag, but a pretty solid economy under Biden. Certainly not the worst economy in the world, as she wants you to believe. And then finally, Karoline Levitt dodges a question about, are we going to get the video of the boat attack or aren't we?
Talk about what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth will be briefing the Gang of Eight, select House leaders as well as Senate about what's going on with Venezuela. So, of course, there's this pressure to release the double tap, the second hit on that drug boat. And ultimately, the president says it's up to the Secretary of War whether he should do it or not. So your thoughts about releasing that tape?
Well, how refreshing that we have a commander-in-chief who trusts our Secretary of War and trusts Pentagon leadership to do the right thing by our warfighters. And I think it speaks to the depravity of the Democrat Party that they have stooped so low. They are attacking our military leadership. They are attacking the brave men and women who conducted these strikes well within the law, following the orders from their commander-in-chief. And let's not forget, these are drug boats. These are narco-terrorists. And in 2024...
Oh, God, she's so pathetic. She doesn't answer the question, okay? She doesn't answer whether Trump is going to release the video after on December 3rd he said, yes, I'm going to release the video. It's getting harder and harder for Karoline Levitt to even spin. She's now relegated simply to lying because the truth would be too damaging to this administration. All right. Yesterday, I was invited to join Piers Morgan tomorrow or Thursday to be on a panel to discuss and evaluate Piers's blockbuster multi-hour interview with white supremacist Nick Fuentes. And I said no. I am not going to participate in the normalization of Nick Fuentes and the idea of a panel to discuss, well, he made a lot of good points, but blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to participate in that. Now, there were a couple of interesting revelations from this interview. Now, you might say, well, David, if you're not going to participate in it, but you're playing clips. Yeah, this is my show, and I am analyzing this from the standpoint of, should people be interviewing this guy? Yes, no. What about Piers Morgan? What are the implications of this? But I'm not going to then go on and pretend like we're just talking about Nick's views in a panel format as if this is normal stuff. Incredible moment during this interview, quite frankly, which is so telling to me about this entire Nick Fuentes thing. There is speculation that Nick Fuentes is gay despite being homophobic. I don't know the truth about that, but Piers asks him about it. And then he asks him whether he has ever engaged in sexual intercourse. And it was quite a remarkable exchange. Take a look.
Just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I have no idea what the answer is and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah. Absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
So it is interesting. I believe that this is highly, highly relevant, okay? Fuentes is an incel. He's involuntarily celibate in the sense that he says, I am attracted to women, but they're so difficult to be around. I have never had sex. He's almost 30 years old. Okay. I think that is not an aside. I believe that if we look at radicalization and extremism in young men, the fact that he is unable to find any women that and I know a lot of you are going to say, David, the real damn reason is that he's gay. And that may be the case. I know that is a widespread thing. And there at one point there were, I don't follow this stuff closely enough, but there were claims that there were known men that he had been in relationships with. But if for a second we believe, yes, this is a man who he's attracted to women, presumably he would like to have sex with women, but he finds women so difficult to be around, he hasn't been able to do it. The fact that he is an incel, I think, is actually highly relevant to the bigger picture of this radicalization and extremism. A couple other just quick moments here. They talk about whether joking about the Holocaust is appropriate.
That one was a joke, but do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
I do actually. I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
All right. And then one more clip where Fuentes explains why he thinks Hitler and Nazis are cool.
A prominent conservative in America has to say about Adolf Hitler. Now, what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. And that's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, I
mean,
do.
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow up?
He murdered 12 million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II and it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's compelling.
All right. So I'm not even going to, but I think Piers is horrible. I think this is all rage bait and this is completely effing nuts. Okay. But this is an invaluable set of insights into Fuentes and his ilk. Incel presumably would like to be with women, but he can't put it together. Finds this male-dominated Third Reich of uniforms and authoritarianism cool. This is a study in radicalization. There is a very well-documented constellation here of psychological and social factors that can take these young, isolated men. He's dealing with anger. He's sexually frustrated. He's got a shaky sense of his own identity. And they gravitate toward these extremist symbols like Nazi uniforms and the mythologizing of Hitler. And I don't believe it's because the ideology itself is what's cool. It's because of what it represents to people like Fuentes, who are kind of losers, right? I mean, a 25-year-old incel with extremist views is drawn to the Nazi uniforms and Hitler because there's emotional gaps there that it fills. The power and the dominance. He's weak and rejected. He can't even get a girl, okay? And this militaristic imagery, hierarchy, and a sense of meaning and your rank within this depraved system, it provides a fantasy of strength and control that he completely lacks in the real world. He's got identity and belonging, the parades and the, whatever you call them, the flair that the Nazis would wear. And it's a part of something bigger. And he feels invisible because remember, he likes girls and he can't even get one to pay attention to him. And it also channels the anger that he feels and it gives you a target. It gives them a target in whether it's Jews or women or whatever. And the aesthetic manipulation of the Third Reich, it was Nazism, if nothing else, was engineered to look impressive with the symbols and the order and the spectacle and the marching and all of it. It's supposed to trigger an emotional sort of appeal before critical thinking comes in and he goes, what the hell are these people doing? They're trying to just kill an entire group of people. And so there is so much here about how someone like a Fuentes, rejected by women, which he claims to want, sort of in a purgatory of sorts societally, all of a sudden finds something he connects with emotionally. Incredible. Just by no fault of Piers' own, what an insight into the world of extremism. And by the way, we shouldn't be making fun of it. We should be realizing how these people are ending up radicalized and actually trying to do something to prevent young men from falling into it in the first place. We've got a phenomenal bonus show for you today. Sign up at joinpakman.com.